Crowder,
Here.
Jim Vancouver.
Here.
And discuss any changes or corrections to the minutes from the last meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the minutes from the last meeting be adopted.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'm going to read a prepared statement, and then we will begin. The Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board appointed by the mayor and city council. The board is not part of the city administration and is governed by both city and state codes and ordinances. The board is made up of 5 members. Currently, we have 1 vacancy for this meeting, but we hope to have that filled by our next meeting. Myself, the chair, cannot make a motion, but I have a vote. There must be 3 affirmative votes to pass. No motion made by the board will be the same as denial. If all 5 members are not present, the petitioners have a right to ask for their case to be tabled until the next scheduled meeting, but there is no guarantee of a full board next month. The board is empowered to vary the regulations of the zoning ordinance in harmony with its general purpose and intent, where the board makes a finding of fact that there are practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships that may prevent carrying out the literal provisions of the ordinance. The board reviews conditional use requests and considers the following. Is the requested use consistent with the intent and purpose of the ordinance and with the comprehensive plan? Will the use have a substantial adverse effect upon adjacent property and the character of the neighborhood? And will the proposed use be compatible with the immediate neighborhood? The board also reviews variance requests. A variance request should only be granted if the petitioner establishes that an unnecessary hardship will result if the zoning regulations are enforced. There are 7 criteria for actions on a variance, which were addressed in your application. A general rule of thumb is that a variance should prevent a hardship and not grant a special privilege not available to other landowners in similar situation. Unnecessary hardship means the land in question cannot yield a reasonable return if only used for the purpose allowed in that zone. The issue in question is due to a unique circumstance and not to the central conditions of the neighborhood. The hardship must not be self-created, and the use authorized by the variance will not alter the essential character of the locality. As a board of the city, all testimony is welcome. Decisions are based on the facts and evidence allowed under the city code. I will introduce your case, and the city staff will provide details regarding the request. The petitioner will then be asked to come forward to this podium over here and speak into the microphone and present your case so your testimony can be heard and recorded. Please give your name and address for the record. If the proceedings become lengthy, testimony may be limited by myself to new facts or evidence not already presented. Objectors will then have an opportunity to address the board. Objectors shall state their name and address for the record as well, and then state their objections or concerns. I will then call for any board questions or discussions. Final summaries and additional comments may then take place. Based on a motion and a second, I will call for a vote. If your variance is approved, please understand that you may still have to comply with other regulations and codes, such as applicable building codes. Please visit with Development Service Department official for any clarifications. Today we have 4 members present. And so is there anyone that would like to have their application tabled to the next meeting? There are none. We'll proceed.
Okay, good afternoon. Our first case is a conditional use request made by Bowling Street Flex Space LLC for 4900 Bowling Street Southwest. And we're asking for an indoor amusement use within our heavy industrial zone district. This is about a 31,000 square foot newer warehouse facility on a 2.5 acre parcel of land. Of that, about 16,000 square foot would be converted into a gymnastics facility, which would be for kids first gymnastics. This is urban high intensity on our future land use map, and we're in accordance with that, with this use. We've got more than enough off-street parking provided according to code. As we see by the zoning, this is pretty much all heavy industrial. There's a little bit of commercial to the east across Bowling Street. And we have access to both Bowling and 50th Avenue. As you can see here with this aerial, photo. And here we've got a street view of it. We've got tenants north and south. The Kids First Gymnasium would be the central portion of the structure, which they've shown us here, along with the available off-street parking. And this was reviewed by the City Planning Commission at their last meeting on the 8th and was unanimously recommended for approval. And with that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you would come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Dave Drown, 6627 Spring Grove Court, Northeast.
And what would you care to add to your case?
I think it was well covered at the CPC meeting, and Dave was helpful in everything on the front end, so I don't have anything to add, really.
Okay. Any questions of the petitioner from the board?
I have a question, Dave. Will the amount of off-street parking have any effect on the other tenants in the building? Will it take up their tenant parking space?
Don't believe so. One tenant on the north has one employee, and the tenant on the south has a fair number of parking spaces on the south end of the building that's pretty exclusive to them.
Okay.
Are there any objectors present? There are none. Any further comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve conditional use 02483-2017.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with Building Services Department.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our second conditional use. This comes to us from Adam Covington for East Bank LC, and this would be at 97 3rd Avenue Southeast, which is formerly known as Smulikoff's in our downtown district. Here's our location. And this would be for a proposed outdoor service area for the East Bank venue. The total building size is 115,000 square foot. East Bank utilizes about 14,000 on the ground floor. And then this would be a newly constructed outdoor area, a little over 900 square feet. And they would like to have about 30 seats. And we can see we're in our downtown C4 zoning district. And this area that we're asking for would overlook the river along this wall of the building here. And he's showing us a little layout, but I think we can better see it with some photos provided. So this would be the area that is utilized. And staff recommends approval. I think we've got our 3 standard conditions with a 4th additional condition from the fire department regarding exiting, and that's just due to the narrow nature. So that they want to keep some access way along here. And this also was reviewed by the Planning Commission on the 8th and unanimously recommended for approval. And with that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you would come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Adam Covington, 2520 Country Club Parkway, Southeast.
And what would you care to add to your case?
I just really appreciate the opportunity and working with you. It's been fantastic with all the city employees. I think we have a lot of people that are excited about having outdoor use, especially because we'll be opening up as a lounge here in a couple weeks full time. I heard you mention Popoli when I walked in, so now you have another space, pending everything goes well, to have cocktails after work.
Out of curiosity, what is the dimension from the side of the building sort of to the concrete railing there?
It is 7 feet 7 inches.
Any other questions for the applicant? Are there any objectors present? There are none. Any other further questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve conditional use 024864-2017, subject to the conditions listed by the building staff
In the fire department,
and the fire department, yep.
add to the fourth one.
Yep.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with
Thank you.
building services for next steps.
Okay, we have an additional outdoor service area request. This is at 264 Blair's Ferry Road, made by Jose Reyes for Veneria. And this is about a 1.5 acre lot. The building's a little under 3,000 square feet. He'd like to create a 650 square foot outdoor service area with 20 seats. And again, he's got more than enough parking as required by code. This is a strip of commercial zoning along Blair's Ferry. We do have some residential as we head to the north. And here's an aerial view of the property. This outdoor area would go into this grassy space right in front of the building there. Or on this photo, it would be this area right here. And he's provided us a site plan showing that. And this is recommended for approval by staff with the standard conditions. CPC also reviewed this on the 8th and recommended approval unanimously. And with that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? Come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Jose Reyes, 264 Blair Ferry Road, Northeast.
And what would you care to add to your case?
I think it's very clear what I want and nothing else really.
Okay. Any questions from the board for the applicant? Are there any objectors present? There are none. Any further comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that conditional use 0248672017 be granted, subject to the 3 conditions.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with building services. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll get into our variance portion of the agenda. First request is for at 922 8th Street Southwest, and we are asking to construct an 18 by 24 foot carport, which would be open on 3 sides. It'll be located within 4 feet from the rear lot line in lieu of the required minimum 5 foot setback, and also 14 feet from the corner side yard in lieu of 25 required, due to this being a reverse corner lot. Let's see, signs were posted, staff has no concerns. This is zoned as R3 single family. Here's our location showing the corner lot and a closer up aerial view. And this, actually these improvements that you see here are not there at this time. These have been removed. So that creates the space for this carport right here. And then the driveway will come over an angle and use the existing curb cut that's already in place. And that would be a new hard surface drive. And let's see, staff has reviewed. We recommend one condition if the board should choose to grant, And that would be that the carport would remain open on 3 sides. Actually, 2 conditions, and also a right-of-way permit and building permit be obtained. And with that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present, please? Thank you. You would come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Kelly Williams. I'm at 922 8th Street Southwest.
And what, if anything, would you like to add to your case?
I had a carport there originally, and I removed it and went to get the building permit, and they said, you can't do that. So I was like, oh, okay. I got the variance, and that's why I'm here. So I just kind of want to upgrade, replace.
Any questions for the petitioner? Are there any objectors present? There are none. You've reviewed the conditions, and those are
Yes. Yes.
great.
Mr. Chair, I would like to move that we approve variance number 024898-2017, subject to the recommendations from the building services staff, citing unique circumstances.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further conversation? There's none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with building services for next steps.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a variance request for a freestanding sign at 700 Boyson Road Northeast. This is made by, or made for Friendship Baptist Church by CR Signs Incorporated. And they would like to replace an existing sign with an 85 square foot double-faced illuminated freestanding monument style sign which exceeds the allowable 48 square feet. And it will also exceed the height. The maximum height is 8 feet above grade, and this would be 10 foot 3 inches above grade. This is zoned ag. It's currently developed and used as a church. We have not received any concerns from neighbors. Here's a location map showing us along north side of Boyson Road here. Pretty big lot. This shows you the existing sign that would be replaced, and again, it'll be 5 foot back from the setback line, which meets requirements. So, in other words, this is what we're replacing with this. And with that, I will turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Aaron Vosmick, CR Signs, 4701 First Avenue.
And what would you care to add to the case?
I think the biggest thing too, if you go back to that other picture, basically out zone, they're blocked from several trees, so I don't think there's any issue with anything. Everything around it is commercial. Current Brothers, and I think the villages are around there, so highly commercialized area. We're not adding digital or anything there. We're trying to, tie in the architectural components of the building, I would say, to the sign.
Is it currently a banner sign, a temporary banner sign that's that?
It is not. It's just a post and panel, an old wooden, I think it's an old wooden sign.
Oh, got it,
So
yeah.
we're trying to upgrade that a little.
Question for the city. If they were zoned, just even say C3, would this be an issue?
No,
Right.
No.
It's because it's ag.
exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Are there any objectors present? There are none.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve variance 024939-2017, citing not detrimental.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, there is, All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with building services.
Okay, our next variance request is at 1832 8th Avenue Southwest. And this is a request to install a 6-foot-high solid fence that would have a 0 setback from the front property line on a double frontage lot in lieu of the required 12.5-foot setback that's required. This is zoned R3 single family. No issues or concerns have been identified. No contact from neighbors. Here we see the uniqueness of the lot here with a corner lot giving us 2 front yards and an interior side yard. And here we're showing how we would locate the fence. And here we're just looking down the street in the vicinity. And with that, actually, the applicant has provided us with signatures of support from his immediate neighbors, which should have been in your packet. And other than that, staff has no concerns and would turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Kayla Mikhail, 1832 8th Ave Southwest.
And what would you care to add to your case?
We would just like to add that this is for our privacy. We feel that we should have the same right to privacy as a backyard would at a normal property. Also, our side neighbor immediately was one of those who had signed the, that they didn't object to our fence. And I think that one of the big issues was that they have that driveway in the back, but it is not used, and our fence wouldn't block their view if they were to drive all the ways back before they pulled out of their driveway, if they were to use it.
And what type of fence do you plan on constructing?
We plan to do one of those white vinyl 6-foot fences.
Any questions for the petitioner from the board? Are there any objectors present? There are none.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that variance 024947-2017 be granted because of unique circumstances of the lot.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? There is none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with the Building Services Department. Thank you.
These are some really good packets.
Okay, this regards 1600 9th Avenue Southwest, and our request is to construct a 28.5 by 32.5 square foot 2-story detached accessory structure, which is going to be a garage with an upper level of storage. It'll provide 1,422 square foot of gross floor area. And when combined with the existing accessory structure, the total will be 1,614 square feet. And this new structure would also exceed the height of the principal dwelling structure. It'll be 18 feet in lieu of 13.5 for the existing structure. And also the materials that will be used are not going to be the same as the primary structure. The primary, I believe, has metal siding, and this new one would use vinyl siding. And we do have a staff recommended condition. Should the board grant the variance, we would ask that it have a condition that it be used for residential uses only. And I don't believe we have anything else to add. Let's see, let's look at our pictures here. We're kind of in the middle of a lot here on middle of the block on 9th Avenue. Here we have an aerial view of the site. You can see from the street view that this really isn't going to be very visible. It's quite set back, and mainly you're going to see the houses from the street. They've provided us renderings of what the structure would look like. And here's our site plan. And then you'll see the existing structure over here in the corner. And with that, I would turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Stephen Klein, 1600 9th Avenue Southwest.
And what would you care to add to your case?
Neighbor 3 doors up has a garage almost exactly like it. I've talked to all my neighbors. Nobody seems opposed to it. Little curious on, I have an existing garage and a shed, but if I take the shed away, I can file a building permit and build the garage I want to build, and then bring the shed back 6 months later. So I can have the shed and the garage, but I just can't have them in that order. It's just a little curious to me, but other than that, no, I don't.
Is that how you would characterize that?
Well, it looks like the shed's 12 by 16, so we would get you on a building permit there.
Right.
But you could do a 12 by 10 shed and you wouldn't need a permit. So.
Right, and I would be willing to pay a building.
But I think at the time that you came in for the building permit, we'd ask you to come back here anyway, so.
Right, so, okay.
Just wanted everyone to be
It was
clear
just
on
a
that.
curiosity.
Yeah.
And if I can add, I am going to match the look of the house. It's just I can't justify putting aluminum siding on the garage. I mean, I'm going to match it and match the shingles. Everything's going to look like they were paired together. So,
Thank you. Any other questions for the,
What's the purpose of the bigger garage? Or-
strictly personal.
Okay.
are there any objectors present? There are none. Any further comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that variance 024950-2017 be granted as compatible with the area.
Second?
Subject to the condition it only be used for personal purposes.
Right, right.
Mr. Vernon, do you want to say that was unique circumstance or not detrimental?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Still a second? Great. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? There is none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with the Building Services Department.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a reduced front yard setback variance request at 47 29th Street Northwest. Applicant would like to request a new 5-foot-high chain link fence with a 0 front yard setback in lieu of the minimum required front yard setback of 25 feet. This is zoned R2 single family. No issues or concerns have been identified. We have not heard from any neighbors. We do have a recommended condition. All portions that are within the required front yard shall remain open chain link fencing. Here we see we're on the corner. We have a site plan, so that the area in question would be this portion of the fence right there by First Avenue. Oh. And I guess that's what we have. It looks like in our comments, we received a call from a neighbor, but upon explanation of the request, they offered no objection and rather offered assistance to the appellant in locating the property line because they had access to a survey. So with that, I would turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you could come forward, please, and state your name and address for the record.
Whitney Reedshaw, 740 Magnolia Lane, Marion.
And what would you care to add to your case?
I really don't have anything at this time.
Any questions from the board? Are there any objectors present? There are none. In the reason for the fence,
Oh, I have a 4-month-old, and 3 foot was just not gonna cut it if we want to use that area for him to kind of run. And due to the lot being kind of irregular, like the back part's only about 8 foot, so I just thought that would be a nice add-on to the back for area for the dog and for him.
thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve 024955-2017, subject to the staff conditions, comments noted herein.
Citing,
Unique circumstances.
still a second, Mr. Vernon.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? There is none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with the Building Services Department.
Okay, we now have a signage variance request at 3500 Dalton Way Southwest, which was formerly the Von Mauer Building out at Westdale. And we would like to install wall signage that exceeds the maximum allowable square footage. I don't know if the numbers made it into your packets or not, but the numbers we're talking about are 291 square feet in lieu of 212 square foot that would be allowed. And this would pertain to the south face of the existing building, which is zoned C2 Community Commercial. We've received no input from concerned citizens. So this is the structure that we're talking about. And the south wall is where the signage is going to exceed, and they make a point in their explanation that they have not used their maximum square footages on the other sides of the building, and they would just like this southerly portion to exceed the maximums, and they've provided us elevations of what the signage would look like. And let's see, staff doesn't have any issues with this, and with that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Mason Fromm with Signs and Designs in Cedar Falls, 5600 Nordic Drive.
And what would you care to add to the case?
Basically, it comes down to the definition. The primary frontage is the one that you can see on the top. If you go to the 3 elevations, or the one on the right side, we chose that as the primary elevation because it has the door on it. In hindsight, if we had chosen the primary elevation as the south wall, which is the one on the bottom, we wouldn't have a problem with any of the signage at all. It's just that at the very beginning of the project, we assumed the primary side should probably be the one that most customers are going to enter from. So given the totals of all the square footage for the west side and the east side and the west side, both of those are far under the square footage allowed for that particular wall. It's just that when you move to a secondary frontage, the amount of signage that you're allowed is cut in half and that figure is based on the primary frontage. So there's lots of numbers, but I don't know if you want to dive into all of them.
Well, I just, for clarity, for everyone's sake, if they were to in the future come back for signage on the other sides, then this would count against their total, or how would that work?
Each wall is individual. Each wall is individually counted. So we could come back on the north wall and still have that 50% total of the primary frontage. Yeah. But on the south wall, we have maxed out our south wall signage. Unless for some reason the city would allow us to change our definition of the primary facade, that would be an option too. It's just at this point in the project, the primary facade doesn't have an entrance to it, which is kind
right. I think we'd prefer to keep it with the door, the primary frontage. Yeah.
So then the argument is that the door is on the narrow end of the building, and we have this huge wall that's a secondary frontage, even though it's almost twice as big as the primary frontage.
Any other questions for the petitioner? Are there any objectors present? There are none.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve variance 024958-2017, citing not detrimental.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further conversation? There's none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with building services.
Okay, this request is at 2224 29th Avenue Southwest, asking for a reduced interior side yard setback and over the maximum allowed accessory structure size. We have a 2-acre lot. The existing single-family dwelling has 444 square foot. The proposed accessory structure, along with the other existing accessory structures, would, let me find the numbers here. Where are they? I think we're going to have something like 3,000 square foot of accessory structures to go along with the house. And today's request is to build a 30 by 66 foot single-story detached garage. It's a very large lot, but it's only 132 feet in width. Signs were posted. If this were to be granted, we would ask for 4 conditions, it looks like, to be used only for residential uses. We'll need to hard surface the drive. We'll need a right-of-way permit and erosion control measures that are acceptable to Public Works. So here we see the narrow nature of this rather large lot with, it's got a fall to it going back to drainage at the north. So the buildings are kind of clustered at the south end of the site. And here we can see the various existing and the proposed 30 by 66 square foot structure. And we've been provided renderings of what it would look like. And with that, I would turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Kathy Holmes, 2224 29th Avenue Southwest.
And what would you care to add to your case?
Since we're getting a variance on the design standard, I also wanted to note that the existing residential structure is a vinyl siding and asphalt roof, and we wanted to do steel siding and steel roof on the building. And then in addition to that, we wanted to propose the hard surface driveway, if we could add that when and if the street is ever put through. Right now it's on a dead-end street, 29th Avenue.
I think I'd have to have you address that.
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever tied it to a street project before. When you're on the private property side of the line, I think we have to have it surfaced.
Okay.
If you're going to be driving on it. I
Driving
understand
tractors,
your
yeah.
public street isn't paved, but
So it's actually going to be an ag building garage.
I believe we do have provisions. If you're not going to put vehicles in it, you can sign a form with the building department, and then you don't.
Have vehicles along with
Oh,
the.
okay. If you use vehicles, then we're supposed to
Okay.
surface. Yeah.
Hard surface, okay. And that can be asphalt or concrete, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you're going to use it for vehicles and animals? Is that?
No, tractors.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know what you meant by ag. That's why I asked.
Yeah. No, it's just tractors and lawnmowers.
Okay.
And
Any other questions for the petitioner? Are there any objectors present? There are none. Any further comments?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve variance 024960-2017, subject to conditions listed by the Building Services Department, citing unique circumstances.
Second.
Motion and a second. Before we vote, I just want to make sure, just the way we clarified that your understanding of the conditions, including the hard surface and
The hard
personal
surface,
use.
yes. And I just want to make sure the variance on the building is going to be steel siding as opposed to the aluminum siding that's on the house.
So noted, yes.
Okay.
Okay, just want to make sure we're all clear. Any other discussion? There is none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with
Thank you.
Building Services.
Okay, moving along. I believe we're up to 1717 Third Avenue Southeast. Another request for a fence within our front yard setback. This would be a solid 6-foot-high fence. This is an R3 single-family zone residence district with an irregularly shaped lot. We have not heard from any neighboring citizens. As we can see, it's quite a small lot, and this shows a little better. It's mostly structure taking up the lot. Here is our street view, and this the fence in question would be on this portion of the house. Let's see, we would be as close as 15 feet to the front property line in lieu of the required 25-foot setback. With research, it was found that there had been a fence there in the past, but it was removed at some point, and that's why we have to come back to the board today. This has been reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission and received a certificate of appropriateness. And I think that's all staff has to add, and we'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? If you could come forward and state your name and address for the record,
Forgot
please.
to show you the site plan,
Oh.
sorry.
Go ahead.
There's the fence.
Jeremy Gata, 1717 3rd Avenue Southeast.
And what would you care to add to the case?
This is completely for security for my kids. I also have a dog. That's not too big of an issue. But as you know, 3rd Avenue is a very busy road. They like to play wherever they can. The front yard isn't exactly an option, and this allows for us to have a safe and secure area for them to do so. I also do have some neighbors that came along too, kind of to support this as well.
So on this site plan that's shown here, that the crosshatch of the new fence, does that tie into an existing fence in the back? Or?
The back does have a fence,
Okay.
yes. That's the neighbor owned.
Got it. Any other questions for the
Yeah, can
petitioner?
you go back to the one from the street? Yeah. So the fence is going to be on the east side of the sidewalk then?
Correct. Yes, correct.
And how many feet where the most frontage point is toward Third Avenue is there between where you're gonna end with the fence and Third Avenue?
15 feet.
15 feet?
Well, 15 feet from the sidewalk, because that's the requirement. Is it has to be 20, the requirement, I believe, is 25 feet.
Yeah,
from,
you'll actually, I think you'd be 17 feet from the sidewalk.
It's
because there's 2 feet between your property line and the sidewalk.
Okay.
So
The front sidewalk or the side sidewalk?
this right here, this, which is in the front of their house. Yeah. This sidewalk, the fence would be about 17 feet back.
Okay, so the front of your house, does the fence then connect with your house?
Yes.
And then that
It would
would
have a
connect
door.
before the porch or?
It would be just after the porch. So you see the porch there. There's also another side, like you can see on the side closest to the vehicle there's a standing out area. The same thing happens on the other side, and that's where it would actually meet, is on that corner.
So they would come out here. Okay.
If we had a live connection, we could just drive down the street a little further and look at it.
Thank you.
Are there any objectors present? There are none. Any other comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve variance 024983-2017, subject to the conditions noted herein with the staff comments and citing unique circumstances.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? There's none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow
Thank
up
you.
with the Building Services Department.
Okay, our next request is for 119 26th Street Drive Southeast, and we are asking for a reduced rear yard setback for a garage. Appellant would like to build a 24 by 30 foot single-story garage. It will have a 0 yard setback in lieu of the required 3 foot minimum. And this came about as a permit was issued for removal plus an addition to an existing garage, but in the course of work, it was determined that they would have to change scope, which I think we'll be able to see with photographs. The back of this lot is on a public alley, so our structure will back up to an alley. We've received no concerns from neighbors. We would ask that, if granted, the structure should only be used for residential uses, hard surfacing. Oh, and then it looks like we're going to have an overhang that encroaches into the alley, and that permission for that would be granted by the Public Works Department rather than the Board of Adjustment. So they'll have one more approval for that. So here's our location, and we see the original structure there, which was on the alley. And let's see, this drawing shows that we were going to remove this portion of the garage, put an addition towards the interior of the lot, and that permit was issued. Let's see. Maybe I'm not explaining this properly, but let me take a look here. I may need the applicant to explain exactly what went on with the change of scope.
Yeah, if you could come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
James Langamo, 119 26th Street Drive Southeast.
And could you help clarify?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this.
Just drive.
So the remaining structure, the walls that you see standing are these two walls in the corner right here. So as we look up the alley going this way, now I'm going the right direction, those are the two walls that I had been attempting to maintain, both just from an aesthetic or artistic point of view. And so this is where that was the portion that I was intending to keep. Because of construction during the time of demolition, because of circumstances that made it unsafe, I also had to take out one post that was supporting the portion of the structure over here, and that's how it triggered the quite different scope than what the permit was approved for.
And those are the original walls of the original structure then?
Yes.
And so my next question is just if either the petitioner or Dave could clarify the overhang in that encroachment part, and I have a follow-up question to that.
Okay, so the original overhang from this wall towards the alley was about 16 inches, which is similar to what's going on the adjacent property. And then there's a property in the back as well that I think has more than that, so about 2 feet of overhang. The intent was just to build on top of that structure, reinforce it in again with the preserve some level of history or artistic, and then maintain that overhang. It was written on the permit that the overhang should not exceed that original 16 inches.
Yeah, so I guess the intent is just to kind of put back what was there, but
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
no further encroachment. And so my follow-up is then, would we make our approval, if the board approves that, subject to that being approved? Because I'm not sure that we've had a right-of-way issue recently on that.
Unless would it be possible if for some reason the Public Works wouldn't allow you to encroach, could you modify the roof so it wouldn't encroach?
Yeah, it would be possible. I would intend to just build structure on top of the wall, go straight up flush, and keep it without any additional overhang. It's also going to be a higher overhang than the one that was initially there, because we're changing the design. So actually, if I go to the rendering, this is where that first wall is, and the second wall is a partial on the back side. So instead of what was a peak that went this, kind of mimicked that, it's going to be going front to back. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. So it kind of changes it. So now the alley would be coming this way. If we do the overhang, it would be overhanging this amount to cover that wall.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board for the petitioner?
Then there were 4 conditions. Are you aware of
Yes.
all those? And then the 5th one would be, like, if it's not granted, then you'll, from the Public Works Department, then you'll just
Correct.
cross it off. Okay.
So today's decision would only be concerning the wall
Yes.
setback, and the roof thing would be a separate issue.
Correct.
Are there any objectors present? There are none. Any further questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that variance 024993-2017 be granted, subject to the 4 conditions of the staff and for unique circumstances.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? There's none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with Building Services for next steps.
Thank you.
Okay. It's nice to have help.
Yeah.
That's a tricky one.
Okay, let's move on to 325 19th Street Northeast. We're asking for reduced corner side yard setback for a proposed deck. It would provide a, let's see what we've got here. We'll be within 5 feet of the property line in lieu of required 15-foot setback. This is an R3D 2-family residence district. It says we have a house that's situated oddly on the lot. We have not heard from any neighbors. We do have a recommended condition, should the variance be granted, that the deck would remain open and not be enclosed in the future. So here's our location at the corner of C and 19th Street, 15th. And okay, so this the street view shows the side that this open deck would be built on, right there. And here we're provided a site plan, and this is, I believe that's showing an 8-foot setback, but it's been written up as 5 feet, so that they may be including steps to drop that down to 5 feet. So basically, this would be the side of the house that the structure would go along. And with that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present?
Is it northeast or southeast?
Northeast. No.
Oh, okay.
You could come forward, please, and state your name and address for the record.
My name is Brandon Cole, and I live at 1530 11th Street Northwest, the corner of O and 11th Street. Amanda is a friend of mine, and I'm just building the deck for her.
And what would you care to add to the case? And if you could clarify maybe the 5 foot versus 8 foot.
Yeah, the front of the deck will be 8 foot, and it will always be closed, open, I'm sorry. There will be one step that will come out, and it will be the right length for a step.
And then that just ties into the existing ones that are on the picture?
Yeah, there will actually be a little bit of concrete before the steps start. So we'll definitely increase curb appeal. And she is friends with her neighbors, and they said that they wouldn't have an issue with it.
Any questions for the petitioner from the board? Are there any objectors present? There are none. Any further questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve variance number 025003-2017, subject to conditions listed by the building staff, citing unique circumstances.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? There's none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You can follow up with the building department.
I would just like to add that Ruth is awesome down there.
Thank you.
Thank you for that
First
feedback.
timer, she definitely-
All right. That's good feedback. Thank you.
Okay, final item comes up as old business. And this is 3831 Northwood Drive Northeast, which I believe had a variance granted in 2010 for a garage addition that was going to be 2.5 feet from the interior side yard lot line in lieu of required 3 feet. And today, the applicant requests to add on to that same building at the other end of the building and keeping the same setbacks, and they've just asked us to review this as old business. No neighborhood concerns. This would be a 20 by 8 foot addition in the R2 zoning district. This is the building that was previously granted the variance to add on to it, and in 2010 we were adding on back here. And this is what it looks like from the street. And so this is the updated site plan with the new addition coming forward towards the house, but keeping the same setback that was granted for the previous addition. And we do have. Oh no, there were conditions granted with the 2010 that it would be only for residential use, and it was not to encroach any closer into the yard. So those would still be the same conditions if we should grant today's request. And with that, I'll turn it back to the board.
Thank you. Is the petitioner present? They are not. So it's really just, if we decide it today, which is up to my board members, it's really just the issue of the side yard setback. It's not really a square footage thing. Because what I don't understand, or just want some clarification on, is originally we were not going to encroach any closer in the front yard. So does that? I'm just looking at number 2 in the prior variance request. And I just wanted some clarity on that.
Yes. So you're thinking that when it was originally granted, we didn't want to come
Well, that's,
closer to the front? We're so far from the front yard, I don't know why that would be.
And that's why I asked the question, because so then it really then reverts back to, are we willing to, it's not a square footage issue or a front yard setback issue, it's just the side yard.
I think what we probably meant to have written the first time was not to encroach any closer to this property line
Okay.
with this white addition back here, because we're awfully close to the neighbor's property here. And so I think that was the variance, and then there was a condition not to come any closer than the existing building, the darkened area.
But then
Does it
again,
need to be modified, or?
well, I get it. They just want to add on. It doesn't seem like I didn't do the math, but it seems like they're under the size for square footage. They're not coming up against that. It's just
Yeah.
whether we allow them to make it bigger and be at 2.53 feet instead of 3.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's
Okay.
the
I just
request.
wanted to
They
clarify
haven't
that.
given us any information on building materials or renderings of the structure, but
I don't know what anyone wants to do. That might be an interesting question to ask a petitioner or a condition to put in, but I'm happy to do the will of the collective.
My gut is just to go ahead and pass it, or just moving it forward a few feet.
Yeah,
And so I don't have a problem if.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to say, I mean, my presumption is that the materials would be consistent with what exists.
Well, when they go to get their building permit, that's all verified, and if it's not, they have to come back before us and ask for
true.
variance for design review.
Yep, perfect.
That
So I don't know
would-
that we need to make it a subject to, because if it doesn't meet the requirements of the building permit, they'd have to come back before us.
It's just regular code requirements, yeah.
Great
True.
point.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion to approve variant 024992-2017, citing unique circumstances, and, was there conditions on this one? Yeah, subject to the condition noted.
There were a couple of conditions from 2010.
But no new ones,
They'd
okay.
still be,
Yep.
they'd still be the same.
Okay.
We have a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? There's none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And I know Vern isn't here, and I want to thank Sue for, reaching out on the fireworks issue, and I just wanted to state for the board, I think Vern was going to talk about what the city had done, but essentially that was going to be it's not going to be up to us. That was the takeaway. But that was a good question.
Great.
Is that your understanding?
It's going to be administered by the fire department? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any other new business or any other matters before the board?
Move to adjourn?
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you.